last week, I was very fortunate to have my first interaction with Stephen, that's today's guest, and straight away we're down a rabbit hole of service culture, the brutal reality about thinking counterintuitive, using data to make better decisions. And Stephen, he told me a long life story about all the different ways he's been involved with many different businesses, from fast-moving consumer goods businesses to hospitality. And I also had a touch on both of them. And I'll say that I've learned a lot from both of them. But actually, often in hospitality, we are maybe not open to learn from the outside. We have our ways of doing things. And I think it's our biggest enemy in the place we are in now. And another thing that's really, really interesting with Stephen as the guest today is that, and he will tell you the story in a moment, is that he was an educated economist, went to fast-moving consumer goods, and then he ended up with owning a restaurant for more than a decade in Brighton that became a number one ranking restaurant in Brighton. So welcome to the show, Stephen.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael.
How could an economist and a fast-moving consumer marketeer end up operating restaurants and in the end owning one as well? What is the story here?
Well, the story is I worked for various big companies like Ski and United Biscuits, and then I was made marketing director of Grand Met Restaurants, better known as the late lamented Berni Inns. And I was headhunted in there by one of my previous bosses. And so I joined this company, and it had been going since 1948 as a franchise model. It was then bought by Grand Met in the 70s. And in all those years, no research had been done, no market research. So I joined the company, and the MD had a meeting, and he said to each of my colleagues on the board, what is the problem with this company? And because we were losing 2 million meals a year. Oh, and by the way, he forbade me to report on cover loss because it was bad for, and I quote, morale. Incredible. Anyway, each of my co-directors had a different reason. And when he got to me, I said, well, they're all right. Every one of them is right, except you've all done them one at a time. You need to do the whole lot together. So I spent a fortune of the company's money on market research, and I learned the 5 key elements in restaurant, in that kind of restaurant. Number 1 is cleanliness. Number 2 is service. Number 3 is atmosphere. Number 4 is food quality, which came as a bit of a shock to my colleagues. And number 5 is value for money. And at that point, Berni Inns were not clean. The service was crap. The atmosphere was horrible and all over the place. The food quality was okay. And the value for money, because of the first 3, was bad. And that's why they're losing 2 million meals a year.
And how did that journey then move on from there? And what happened as you did that transformation, Stephen?
Well, I was given a lot of leeway by my new boss, a guy who was parachuted in as the managing director. And using the research, we hired Conran and Company. And at that point, when I joined, Berni Inns was one brand name with 98 different menus. So we decided that there were some high-end restaurants with high spend, so we got rid of those. Some low-end restaurants with low spend. So the core were Berni's. So we got Conran to come up with a design. All the restaurants were given that design. We had a pilot of 6 restaurants where the sales went up by about 40% 2 days after the opening. And that was it. It was then a rollout. And it was very funny. They introduced the Catey Awards in 1984. And we won the first one for group marketing campaign. And my boss was very funny. He had he was brilliant at woodworking. So he made a woodwork which went, and at the bottom you wrote, this is for Logue, who completely convulsed the organization, created chaos and disruption, but eventually won an award, and we turned the corner. And that was it. So the famous finger, which I still have to this day.
Yeah, hopefully you saved that one.
Oh, I treasure it.
It's a what do you call it, tipping point in on your journey.
Absolutely.
And it's really interesting you talked about do you think these 5 levers or principles or pillars has changed in general in running restaurants? This was for your restaurant, but you think they actually are the same still? I mean, often we talk
Absolutely.
about positioning, the menu,
Yeah.
the time, the external factors, but is this actually changed over time? Is
No,
this actually
no.
not what I want today? We just talked about a restaurant visit. This is exactly what I want when I go
Well,
somewhere.
After Grand Met, I started a research-led consultancy with one person and a dog in a garage in Chiswick, and we ended up with about 25 of us. And it was a research-led marketing consultancy. So we advised people like Wetherspoons, Green King, Allied Bakeries, and so on. And every time I did that piece of research, the same thing came up. It didn't matter whether it was a pub, a restaurant, or an Allied Bakeries cafe. We did a thing called the Baker's Oven, which was a big success. But every time I've done that research, it has been absolutely consistent. And similarly here in Brighton, when I'm doing research for an independence, the same thing comes up and they all look amazed. They all say, well, it's food quality, surely. No, that's where you start. It's the delivery and the total experience that matters.
And it's very interesting that cleanliness, yeah, that's like, I call it a foundation for actually opening the doors. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
like if you can't keep the place clean, you shouldn't open the doors. That's
But men and women polarize on this. Women will go to the toilet, and if the toilet is not clean, the kitchen is not clean. Whenever I do my workshops, I ask the people in the group to rate the 5 elements, and none of the men say cleanliness first, and very few say service first. They all say value for money or product quality, but it's the women who say, no, it's all about cleanliness and service. And by and large, women decide where the family goes to eat.
so therefore
They
will have the main purchasing power in these
absolutely.
decisions.
And they have a veto. The veto is dirty toilet, dirty kitchen. We're not going there.
And what has then been because what was very interesting, like you made a transition from fast moving consumer goods into restaurants. And I actually tried it the other way around, right? From restaurants to food service to into fast food. Well, and I was fascinated about how much, that was one of my learnings, and you can then add on, Stephen, like how much in fast moving consumer goods you need to know about the customers before you actually start producing a product, because the cost of setting up this production, the manufacturing, the recipe, the scaling of the recipe, sourcing the raw ingredients, it's such a long process. It's up to 2 years sometimes from idea to manufacturing.
Yeah, I mean, to take ski, for example, ski yogurt, which at that point had a 42% market share, it was women, mothers with children, and they chose ski yogurt because they perceived it to be better than ice cream. And in focus groups, I used to say to them, did you know that ski yogurt is 10% added sugar and that the fructose is another 10%? So that ski yogurt is 20% sugar. And they went, yeah, we don't care. It's so better than ice cream. So, and we had this line, which was actually, we were forced to remove it by the Advertising Standards Authority, which was ski yogurt, the full of fitness food. Because the Advertising Standards Authority said, it's not full of fitness, it's full of sugar. So, but that lingered on. But then that was our target market. Then when I moved to United Biscuits, working in KB Snacks, our target market moved to 18 to 24-year-olds. So you had to adapt and move. So although I was a male person of the age of about 30, on the one hand, I was focusing on females, and on the other hand, I was focusing on younger people. So throughout my life, I've used research to help me clarify who it is I'm talking to and what it is they want to hear. And oddly enough, when I started working, I was one of the very few business economists in marketing. Most of them come from literature, geography. One of my colleagues even did atomic science. So it was for 4 years I'd been doing mathematics, statistics, operational analysis, and market research. So I came out with all this stuff, which was quantitative, and then I had my FMCG experience taught me the qualitative side of things, how to approach customers and how to turn them on to what it was I was trying to sell. And the same thing is true of restaurants. Everyone should know who the customers are, what they want, and why they're coming, and why they're coming back or why they're not coming back. It's simple research, and people can use comment cards. It doesn't have to be fancy research. People can do their own focus groups. They can go online and get an indication of how to do it. It is fascinating to sit down with 8 customers and ask them what they think about the place, and have your staff sitting in the background, not interrupting, not contradicting, just listening and learning.
Yeah, and I think that what you really have in fast-moving consumer goods is also that you might think a route to market and target group. You have a hypothesis, you got that confirmed, and you go down that route, and then your job is actually to figure out, are we actually on the right track? Because it could mean that you need to sometimes change route, and it's a bit like opening a restaurant. Yeah, you might open and you think this concept is well thought through, I've done my things, but then when you open, you learn something new. That restaurant doesn't serve its purpose as a restaurant. I might need to turn this into a cafe. And you heard many successful restaurateurs on that bit by luck, but actually if they involve their customer, they might hit it right the second time instead of the third or fourth time, where they had to retransform the whole concept. Because it could be that in fast-moving consumer, you thought go-to-market was supermarket, but then actually it's food service that is your main go-to-market, and then you build your business that way around.
Yep, absolutely.
Instead of the other way around. Yeah.
What I try to explain to people is they should embrace the concept of runners and riders. So the thing about people who work in catering is they're all passionate, but you have to balance your passion with reason. So to give you a very brief example, at one point I was in America and I came across this fantastic concept, which essentially was jungle, safari and all that. And they'd sort of false elephant feet, and everybody wore safari outfits and the hats and so on. And I thought this was fantastic. And I had a location in a shopping centre at Meadowhall in Sheffield. And I thought that would do for me. But because of my runner and riders theory, I put up that concept, the safari concept. I also put up a thing, I can't remember exactly, it was very traditional, like the King's Tun. It was pints of beer and steak and pies and all that. And the other rider was a thing called Spiros. And Spiros was Greek. Put the 3 into research. They hated the King's Tun one. They thought the safari one was absolutely ridiculous because in America, they're very advanced and they have the tongue firmly in their cheeks. But people in Yorkshire are right down to earth. And they said, no, we like the Greek one because it's like it fits into a Mediterranean setting. So we did it. We created Spiros, and we had all the Yorkshire girls had bells sewn into their skirts. The boys had bells sewn into their waistcoats. We had a bouzouki player. We had, whenever the dancing occurred, they would grab a child and dance around the room with the child, and then they'd go panting to the table, and the guests would say, well, that was fantastic. That was really great. And it gave people something to talk about, which again is really important to animate the scene. And this thing was doing, back in the late 90s, was doing 3 million a year. It was fantastic. That and a number of other restaurants my ex-wife and I owned at Meadowhall was sold to a company called Out of Town Restaurants in 2000. But Spiros always has a place in my heart. But again, I come back to the point, everyone, despite their passion, should consider runners and riders when they're thinking of opening a new restaurant business.
I love that, runners and writers, because by writing, running is the passion, and by writing, you start actually do the thinking.
No, sorry, forgive me, but it's my Scottish accent. It's riding.
Writing, okay, yeah.
Like jockeys.
Jockeys, yeah. So in principle, it's about stepping up in the business. That's what you mean with it.
And getting the fastest horse.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. And sometimes as we become operators, we run around solving problems by putting out fires, but we actually don't elevate ourselves up actually to think about the business strategically enough when we're in trouble. Yeah. So
very good point.
What is it that made you on this journey think that, you talked a bit about when we met last time, we already touched on it now, you said the second pillar is service, and you say that, you say service matter more than the food. And that's also, it came as number 2, food is number 4 on the list you gave. Why is that? And why do we as an industry often, I feel, keep under investing in it? It's like something we take when we further down the line. When we're more developed, we will develop a service culture, service philosophy. It's very rare I met independent operator or even people that has a significant size business. I asked them, so what is your service philosophy? What do you mean? Have you written down your approach to service? Have you decided about the service touch points you have? Oh, we have a service standard. We take order this way. No, that's not what I mean. How do you escalate a customer issues and so on?
Well, I mean, I think you've really covered the ground. I mean, the big thing is that I love the fact that Sir John Timson, the Timson shoe company, his labor philosophy is hire character, train skills. And you can train people in the catering skills. It can be done. However, to get people to come into the industry who believe in themselves, who are prepared to fail, and then through failure succeed, those characters are the ones that help deliver the extraordinary experience we want guests to have. So often people will say, oh, we had a fabulous night in whatever the restaurant was. Oh, great. What did you have to eat? Can't remember. Oh, what was it? Well, but you had a lovely time. Yeah, oh, it was brilliant. We knocked on the door, everybody was friendly, and the maitre d' was great, and the sommelier was great. But you can't remember what you ate. No. But it was fantastic, and we'll go back. Because they had a great experience. And it's the experience in the round that really matters to people. And many restaurants are operated by chefs, and therefore that's their stock in trade. And there are many chefs who deliver a fantastic product and a great experience. But aside from that elite, you've got people who are delivering, particularly in casual dining, fairly straightforward food. It's not remarkable. I mean, it's good, and it's good value, and it tastes nice, and it does all those things. But what makes a fantastic evening are the other things.
Yeah, the atmosphere, the service, the cleanliness. Yeah.
It's a mantra, a phrase.
Yeah. And what is it that makes us hold back on this? What do you think sometimes? Like you typically see this is what's being cut when things get hard or maybe never developed in many businesses.
Well, people don't really see it. I mean, when I do my workshops, I can see, people's eyes rolling. It's something that when people get it, I mean, the other day, I'll try to be very brief. I was sitting outside a restaurant. We were advising the guy. The chap came up the road and said, "Oh, Stephen, I've been meaning to talk to you." And I didn't recognize him because he had a big hat on. And I said, "Sorry, can you remove your hat?" So he did. I said, "Oh, it's you, Chris." He said, "Yeah, I've been meaning to reach you for the last year or so because the magic training you gave me in the restaurant changed my life. I'm now working as a professional carer. And I couldn't have done that before. I could not have cared for another human being." And I thought, I said to him, that's the nicest compliment I think that anyone's ever given me. Teaching someone to care professionally for someone else. And that's because we helped him get the courage to believe and gave him the ability to fail. And in failing, he then learned to succeed. And that cycle gave him self-belief, which is the strongest thing you can give to another human being.
Yeah. And that's really, you come back to, you talked about Timson's before. That's really what they do because they really take people in that has maybe hit rock bottom.
Yep.
And
ex-prisoners.
And they fertilize that seed and with water and whatever it needs, fertilizer, it actually, it starts to grow. Yeah. And then suddenly you meet these incredible people, and the only thing they in principle are doing, I'm not trying to talk that, but actually they're making keys and shoes and things that everyday things we need. But actually you always meet a very service-minded person in those places. If they can't figure it out, they'll find out where you can get it figured out. Yeah.
Well, I was buying a little locket thing for my oldest friend. We were celebrating 60 years of knowing one another. So I went into Timson's with this locket, and I said to the guy behind the counter, "I was told by the jeweler not to give you this locket to inscribe because you're going to make a total mess of it." And I said, but I've been coming here for years, getting shoes fixed and various other things mended. And you've always done a fabulous job. So would you mind doing this? So he said, certainly. And give me a phone number. So I gave him a phone number. I went round the corner to grab a coffee. I literally ordered the coffee. Went, beep, beep. It's ready. It's because I told him that I believed in him.
Yeah.
It works every time.
Yeah. What is it that you think that, if you would start this journey of like, if you're a restaurateur or you run a restaurant business, or how do we actually get reset or started with this whole service thing? Because we talk about service hospitality all the time, and we even talk about, there's lots of people here on the show. I wrote a little bit about it in our newsletter this weekend. We are losing the art of hospitality, which is the art of what's really made this industry what it is. How do we start that journey again? Where do we actually start? If we as an operator have we can see now the only thing I can impact in the new world of restaurant is either how my people feel and thereby the service they deliver. And maybe you can decide also who you really, are impacting as a supplier. But there's really few things that's in your control. You can't control inflation. You can't control VAT. All those things we complain about often, but they're out of our control. But service, in my view, and the supplier network we work with is really there where the difference is.
I mean, I don't know if I'm going to answer that correctly, and stop me if you think I'm going in the wrong direction. But the thing is that most people who go into the bottom level of hospitality and retail, for that matter, have failed at school at one level or another. Otherwise, you'd be going on for A level, going on for university. So they'd be told all their lives that they're stupid. If you don't work harder, you're going to end up working McDonald's. Now that is given as a threat, but actually McDonald's is one of the most fantastic organizations on the planet, and it's being used as a threat. So these people now go into retail, and they've been told all their lives that they're stupid. And that's something which is deep inside them. And I mean, I do a lot of work with job clubs in Brighton in particular, and they're fantastic with skills and work experience and so on, but they don't deal with the first step, which is confidence and self-belief. And if you get someone who's confident and has self-belief, you can teach them anything. And they will learn that, we're going to fail to start with, but then we'll get it. And once you've had people who've got that foundation, you can teach them anything. But you have to spend time on the foundation and not just teach them skills. Carrying plates, cleaning tables, pouring wine, all those things are important. But the background has to be a solid sense of self-belief and confidence.
And I have to ask you, how do you get started with that? Because that sounds like a very complex thing that you need to help me build my, confidence, my self-belief. It's a journey, yeah? But how do you then get started with that? Because often, I think you're absolutely right, yeah? Like lots of people that go to work are not feeling as success at work, yeah? Or in life, for that sake.
We're definitely not here to promote my new book, which is Great Service, Great Sales. But in a nutshell, many years ago, I set up a thing called the Meadowhall Retail Academy at the Meadowhall Shopping Centre. I said to the owner, Eddie, do you realise that on the 12th of September, the doors are going to open and a couple of 100,000 people are going to come to the mall. There are 5,000 new retail entrants who will be serving them, and this service will be crap. And they will go home and tell all their friends and family that it's crap. So they won't come back as often, which means the sales will be lower, which means the rent will be lower. So Eddie, you can protect your rent by getting these people into a new place. And he said, well, what are you going to call it? And I said, well, I'm calling it the Meadowhall Retail Academy. And he was a Yorkshireman. So he said, no, Logie, that's bloody stupid. He didn't say that actually, that's bloody stupid. Like retail's down on the floor and academy's up in the air. That's why we balance them. We call them a retail academy. And in my FMG life, for 12, 13 years, I had all these management courses. So I found this young American woman who was a primary school teacher, and I gave her these courses. And I said, please adapt them for school leavers so they're not frightened by them. So we created a 10-module, 2-day program, and we put 5,000 people in Sheffield through it. And that particular centre won the Daily Telegraph Award for retail excellence, I think they called it. The first and only time a mall has done it. Since then, this particular thing, which only reason I call it magic is because it alliterates with Meadowhall magic. It's now been shared with 35,000 people in the UK, Ireland, and Germany. So, go out and buy the book. It's only $3.99 on Kindles.
Great.
On Amazon.
We'll put the link in the show notes for that, because I think, and it's very interesting because it's also, I was in an organization once and I was very young, and it was a McDonald's organization, but he was franchisee and he wanted to use the 7 habits of highly effective people for all his new leaders, which was an extra curriculum besides the normal training.
Yeah.
And it took me about 3 years to understand why we were doing this. Yeah. I would be like, oh, this is soft. We're not going to change any revenue with this. My mystery shop score is not going to change. What is this about? And I found out actually it was about improving my baseline confidence and self-understanding and self-belief. So he probably gave me one of the biggest gifts I could ever give in my life. But at that time, I couldn't see it. Yeah. I just thought it was rubbish.
I get that.
It was like, this philosophy. Yeah. What is that about? But he also applied it and actually followed up on it. Yeah. So he not just gave us the book. He
so
lived
I didn't invent it.
No, and I think there's different angles on it all the time. But we think about some of the best teams that spend a lot of time on this. Yeah. Some of the best teams, the coach or the business owner or whatever kind of context, it will spend a long time and working with the individual's doubts in themselves and how they can overcome them. Yeah. Because that then makes them deliver a better game experience and so on. Yeah. I love that.
Absolutely.
I know when we met and I was reflecting a bit and we communicated a bit back and forth email, you spend a lot of time with Wetherspoons as well.
Yes.
And again, it's like one of these counterintuitive concepts in a way, we look down a bit on in hospitality. And I think I said to you as well, it's a bit like McDonald's, Greg's, Wetherspoon, we all a bit like, but we still have to hugely respect them. And therefore, you also build a lot of more than 12 of your own concepts. And it'd be really interesting to hear what you learned from that journey, because you studied, the Wetherspoon pubs, but also their guests and what made them successful.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the first thing is they're all really clean. Secondly, the service is brilliant. Personally, I think their menu is all over the place. I think there are too many things on it, and I would be definitely wanted to edit it. But the fascinating thing goes way back to my Berni days. I was at an annual conference, and it was my first year there, and I met the manager of the year. And the manager of the year got an award and a check and so on. And I was chatting to him afterwards, and I said, "Oh, I'd like to come and visit your restaurant." So I went to his restaurant, which was in South London. And I went there, and it was scruffy. Actually, it was dirty. And I said to him, "Why are you manager of the year?" "Oh, well, if my cost control, I beat everybody with that." And I said, to what extent do you invest time and energy in cleaning the place? And it's so expect cleaners. Have you any idea how much we pay them? So I went back to my boss and I said, "This is insane. We are rewarding people for cutting standards." Yeah. So we actually introduced the very first chain, because this was just before McDonald's. It was the first chain mystery visit program, and it was all focused on getting it right and cleanliness and service and so on and so forth. And the managers of the year from that point on were the ones who got the highest scores in mystery visits. We took that philosophy to Wetherspoons, and I think at that point it maybe 300 or so pubs, and we introduced basically it was the same format that we used for Berni. We added on some more because Tim Martin loved this thing. I mean, he used to, whenever the results came in, I think it was we did every pub twice a month. Yeah, I mean, it's a fundamental part of their whole culture, and people are rewarded on that basis. So we had the big force of people doing basically 1,600 mystery visits a month at a cost I won't share with you, but it was a hell of a lot of money. But they used it very assertively to measure standards and move standards up And over the years, we see the trend line. It was just because we tried not to change the basic data. When new things come in, we put them into a separate compartment. So we had a kind of fundamental core values, and then the additional ones or promotional ones or whatever. And that's the way they lived their lives. And Tim Martin used to, whenever we went to see them at head office, right, what's the latest, what's new, what's happening? And they're still doing it, to the best of my knowledge. I mean, we I think stopped working with them in 2012, something like that. But and up to then, it was great.
Yeah, and I think that was really interesting when you see, and lots of organizations adapted this, but it's also how it becomes part of the culture again, part of the reward. Yeah. What standards do you set and what do you reward? Yeah. And how do you follow up on that? How do you praise people for doing a good job? And how do you give them corrective feedback? Because there's also an element in there's training missing. Yeah. You always have to ask yourself,
absolutely,
the first time, is there training missing here since they don't hit the standards? Have we not told them what clean is? Yeah.
Yeah.
I often say.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why do you think that, and you think about Wetherspoon is still tremendously successful today? Yeah. And multiple decades with this. What is it again that makes them stand out? Because people don't think about them as being good at service and quality product and so on.
I disagree with that. I mean, the interesting thing is, if you go to a Wetherspoons, you can see a Wetherspoons person. They're there because the price of beer is, I mean, the bottle of a lovely bottle of white wine that goes out for, I think, £16. Now, the markup on that is less than 3 times the cost. Now, people now have a habit of doing 4 and 5 times the cost. Wetherspoons, the value for money is fantastic. The products are good. The glasses are clean. The service is fast. If you like that sort of thing, I really personally don't like their food, but it scores very highly. And they rely on microwaves to a very large degree to get the product out, but it's cheap, But it's a pub. It's a pub first, and even though food sales have made a significant increase over the years, it's still seen as a pub. And the fact that they don't play music, they don't have any television screens, that appeals to a whole generation of people who just want to go somewhere quiet.
Yeah. It's interesting, the music bit, actually. I forgot about that, but you're absolutely right. There's a thing again. There's no music, there's no special sports days and so on, but also that has a cost, because then you're distracted away from what your core business is, Your core business is what you just told, Clean glasses,
although
quick service.
In theory, I mean, speaking personally, I like going somewhere with this music in the background, and I would tend to stay longer because of that. But clearly, Wetherspoons people don't agree with me, and they stay long because it's quieter. And again, being a wee bit older, the choice of music that's played becomes really quite critical, because they can get very irritated by listening to Radio 1 while they're having a pint.
I think it's very interesting again, because I guess Wetherspoon has also found their fans, their super fans again. And
absolutely.
They found their super fans, and then they keep on reaffirming that with their mystery shopping program, making sure that they serve those people that will never go away, no matter what happens.
Absolutely.
As long as you're delivering that core promise to us, we'll not go somewhere else. We'll stay with you put.
It's coming back to what I said earlier. It's the complete experience. It's not an experience for everyone, but it's an experience for the people they want to serve. And that's the other thing too, is too many people in the restaurant business want to please all of the people all of the time. And you cannot do it. The thing you learn about FMCG is you have a mission, you have a vision, you have a brand promise, and then you deliver it to that particular group. And you ignore the others on either side. Total focus.
And I think often that's when you get like in these times where there's a lot of disruption happening in the market, you want to serve everybody, or you jump on things you shouldn't. You don't stay in your lane and actually become better that 1% every day. And that's in principle also what you talked about since we started this conversation, is about choosing those things and using your formula you had before, like cleanliness, service, atmosphere, food, and value for money, and actually build your algorithm within that, because you need to define those areas, what they mean for your concept, and then stay true to that and keep on improving that.
Yeah.
And you need to have that patience and belief, I guess, to do that.
Well, give you a numerical example. The old bank net turned over $1 million. The average spend was 35. So $1 million divided by 35 is about 30,000 roughly. Average party size was 3, so that's down to 10,000. Average frequency was 50. So we're down to about 2,000. No, in fact, when I do the number properly, it's around about 400. So basically, 400 bill payers are spending £1 million. That is the value of repeat business to that. So when we lost a customer, we didn't lose that bill, which was maybe £80. We lost £1,800. And every time we brought somebody new into the restaurant, the potential was not £80. It was a holiday for 4 in Ibiza. It was £1,800. So when people came in, we gave newcomers, we asked them, this is your first visit, a red napkin. Everybody then knew it was their first visit. So they're told where the toilets were, the children's facilities were. We're told if there's something special in the menu or what the favourite product was, recommending it. At the end of the meal, they were given a card signed by the manager that said, next time you come, you all get free dessert. So the next time they came, everybody knew it was their second visit. So they got the treatment. And I can't remember the statistics, but if you get somebody going to a restaurant 3 times, they're about 70 to 80% likely to come a 4th time. So the repeat business science is something which you don't see applied. And as I gave you my very clumsy numerical example earlier, repeat customers dominate the income of any restaurant.
And often I think you would like from it's very obvious. You say, yeah, that's obvious, but actually there's not that focus on it. You're thinking about how can we increase the spend on the next person that comes in, but actually it's more important to know if that person actually been here before. Yeah. And
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
when you know a really good independent, they know all their local people, and they even know the people that
Absolutely.
came 6 months ago or a
Yeah.
year ago.
Absolutely right.
And some of them are really good. I can remember we went on holiday in Spain when I was a child, and we went to this restaurant every time, my mom and dad and I.
I'm the
And
same.
for 7 years, yeah, they just knew my mom and dad, and they knew they had restaurants back home in Denmark. So therefore, and they made sure, and it was a bit like, if you come tomorrow, I will give you free wine tomorrow, whatever it was he did.
Yeah.
And he was very much, you can see that whole restaurant was
Yeah.
repeat customers.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he found his little niche there, but he knew everyone. He was just walking around, talking with the tables, touching them.
Yeah.
And I know that's a small independent restaurant, but it is something about
It works.
thinking about it works, and how do you actually systemize that, and how do you actually look at churn as you grow your revenue, because it's very interesting. People often look at revenue, but actually the most important is that are you actually churning your best oldest customers?
Yeah, very
and
good.
if you are having a problem. Your systems are not working for
Absolutely right.
profitable business going forward. You need to go into the systems and figure out what's not working. Yeah. What was the move for you going from, because you made the transition from very big companies down to small independent? You ran your own restaurant in Kemp Town and Brighton, but then also you started advising smaller businesses. Why that move? Because I guess you could still give advice to big change and transform their businesses.
Well, I still have 2 big clients in London. They're not restaurant companies, they're property companies who are trying to develop more leisure in their shopping centres. So that they've got a total of about 40 shopping centres. So I'm advising them on leisure, catering, and so on, doing a lot of research into that. But so that's keeping me nicely busy and giving me a reasonable income. But I just thought catering is really good to me. And I thought, I don't want to sound like really, really, but I wanted to give something back. So I approached Brighton Council and I said, look, I'm happy to give some pro bono time. And they thought about it. And because being Brighton Council, they put you through all sorts of security checks to make sure I haven't got a criminal record. But I managed to disguise that brilliantly. And so I am now their official hospitality partner. And so every month I do a workshop. And if you've anyone in the family who's got insomnia, come along. I'll have them asleep in 5 minutes. And then every other Monday, I do a one-to-one. I was scheduled to do one today, but I'm placed it because I'm talking to you. And it's fascinating. They come in and they obviously have got no money and they talk to me and I haven't a clue what they're talking about. No idea. And I sit there for 30 minutes. Oh, God, no. And then after about 40 minutes, a little light goes on somewhere. And I said, well, what about this? Ah, right. And in the last 20 minutes, we make a plan and off they go. And then we just keep talking. But one of the things I've loved doing is persuading people to build into their branding a service promise. Comes back to what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And there's one lovely guy called Catey, who owns a great Greek restaurant called Nostos. And because I've got rudimentary languages like French, Spanish, and German, all of which are equally bad, I thought Nostos was Greek for us. But I did a little bit of research and I discovered that it is ancient Greek, meaning the homecoming of Jason and the Argonauts. So I said to Kyriakos, we make some changes to the menu because it's a bit strange at the moment, but your tagline is now, it's like coming home. Yeah. And you share that with the team and you say to everybody, this is our service standard. We make people feel like they're coming home. So wherever possible, I work with my clients, inverted commas, to persuade them to, first of all, get their costs under control using some simple spreadsheets, get their labor under control using some spreadsheets, but then talk about the branding and the promise that the restaurant is making to people and then helping them to deliver it. And it is great fun. I think I've got about 50 of these clients now.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Because one of the things, I hear a lot of independents across Europe, especially in the UK, feel that, it's broken. Yeah. Like it's really broken, the whole independent scene, if it's pubs or restaurants or whatever it is. But what do you really believe that it's broken and external factors has really decided that? I know, of course, they have an impact, or they just, I call it badly run sometimes when you get into the core of it.
A little glimmer of good news today, which is just in the British paper, so it probably hasn't reached Denmark yet. But Andy Burnham, who is planning to take on the Prime Minister, has said he is going to fight for a 20% reduction in business rates for cafes, pubs, and independents.
Yeah, that's a great news. Yeah.
In addition, he's supporting Tom Kerridge, who started a campaign to reduce VAT in the UK to 10%. So we kind of correspond to most European countries in terms of the top rate of VAT, but everywhere else, Italy, France, that's 10%, Germany 7%. So he's supporting that as well. So there is some hope on the horizon on that front. But the big thing with independence is that if you talked about McDonald's, if you're a McDonald's manager, you sit down in front of a screen and it's all there. Yeah. I will say to an independent, tell me your gross margin. I said, well, last week I spent 10 grand on food and drink and my income was 25. So knock off the VAT at either end. So I'm on about 60%. Yeah, fine. What's your what's your highest margin line? My what? Your highest margin line? I have no idea. Mm-hmm. So they don't have a line by line costing. So I then teach them, the famous one about, the stars, the dogs, the plough horses and the puzzles. Get them to segment the gross margin. And you either get rid of them because they're dogs, or you promote them because they're stars, or you solve them because they're puzzles. And that one exercise can take about a week, maybe 2 weeks. But once they've done that, they've done it. And the impact that has is fantastic. Also, the labour schedules, they stick to them. Doesn't matter what the weather's doing. It doesn't matter. Look, he always works those hours. We'll change the hours. And if you have to pay a premium, give them a higher rate per hour to buy flexibility from your waking staff. And that will bring down your labour percentage. Because the old bank labour percentage was 25% at a time when most others were struggling at 32, 34. I think at that point, Pizza Express was 37. So, it can be done.
Yeah, and I think often you also, if you're really focusing on the quality of the team and you make sure the right people are put together. So, if you have the wrong people on the bus that just demands and want specific hours, as you say, and will not budge, you also know they will create a bad atmosphere and then the good leave. Yeah. So again, it's a bit back to I often say it's often before the service culture or whatever you define that, it's also deciding that you get people, you talked about Simpsons, yeah, right character, yeah, and before actually skills, yeah, because then you can actually make wonderful things happen, and you don't need as a big team maybe, because you can maybe reduce that team. I've seen that in restaurant I've been part of where the team was reduced with 20%, but we delivered more revenue because we were just better together. And some say we're then working long hours. Sometimes we were, but actually there was that culture. We didn't want somebody on that was not delivering the same as us. So therefore we rather wait for the right person. And that meant that, people stayed longer as well, both employees and customers in the end. Yeah.
Well, and this is highly topical because the big debate about the World Cup and the selection of teams is, do you have the best footballers in your country on the team, or do you have the best team players who are not necessarily the same as the best footballers? And the overwhelming answer seems to be have best team.
And it's so spot on, Stephen. What is the one good advice you would give to the audience here in the end of the conversation that you think that any business owner or operator should go and ask themselves in these times? Because you both see big business and small business from the inside out. But is there like a question that'd be good to ask yourself in these times?
The question is, it's really important to put yourself in other people's shoes. So if you are an independent restaurant and you have an idea and a passion, you follow it because that's what people do or don't. Have that idea, but create more runners and riders. Check it out. The best money I've ever spent on my behalf or on any company's behalf has been research. So check it out. Check out what it is you're offering, how you're presenting it, how you're branding it. Is it easy to pronounce? Does it promise what it says? Establish a little sequence, and I think I saw something from you, which is very good. And it was your mission, your values, and then set out your objectives, your strategy, and your tactics. And it's as simple as that. It's have a methodology. Who are you? Why are you doing what you're doing? What are your objectives? How are you going to get there in general? And how are you going to get there specifically? But at the very start, just check that the concept that you've got is the best one for your ability and your capability and the funds that you have to invest. Ask that question first.
Love it. I love it. I love the idea about putting yourself in other people's shoes. And as you say, research don't have to be expensive. Often when we talk about consumer research, it's something, it's going to be expensive. You could actually you probably have some guests or people that comes often in your restaurant. You could start asking questions. Why are you actually coming? What do you actually think is great here?
On my website, sorry to interrupt, but on my website, if you click onto Masterclass, the early Masterclasses, I tell you how to do a focus group, how to do a survey, and how to do something else. A mystery visit and a mystery visit. Yeah. So you can design your own mystery visits, you can design your own surveys, and you can create your own focus groups. All the tips are there. So you can do it for nothing. It's free.
Well, we'll definitely put that link in the show notes as well for people to go and visit and your website and get that inspiration. What is the one question, Stephen, you wish I've asked you? What would it be and what would you answer?
I suppose if there was one thing I wish I'd done, I think I wish I'd started my pro bono work a little earlier. I want to bring people on board who can do the same thing as I'm doing. So I'd like to kind of train them. The other thing I wish I'd done is that my academies were very successful all over Europe. And I believe that now is a really good time to reintroduce them. I'm currently talking to Brighton people about it. I want to create the Brighton and Hove Academy for Confidence and employability. So ACE. I'm trying to get that going. So it's more the things I'm looking forward to in the future than perhaps looking back in the past. So I know that doesn't answer your question. That's as close as I can get.
But also the important message here is also it's never too late to start, yeah?
Absolutely.
And sometimes ideas you had in the past didn't really grow in the way you thought, but actually at some point further down the journey, because you keep on at it, every day. It suddenly stands very clear that's what needs to happen now, and I think it's beautiful, a person with your wisdom and experience sharing that to make the industry, better. And that's in principle what the whole podcast is about. It's trying to help people to get better.
I hope this was helpful.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephen, for coming on. We'll share all the links in the show notes and your book as well for people to continue this journey and actually start thinking a bit more, maybe from customers' end of the journey, but also how you're actually going to deliver that promise and understanding what is that promise you need to deliver to your customer, and then change when necessary. And it's about that counterintuitive thinking that actually disrupts your business sometimes, and it hurts. It's brutal looking in the mirror,
absolutely,
and making brutal decisions. We didn't talk so much about that, but that's really what it's about sometimes as well. And it's great news. I didn't hear the news about Andy Burnham and Tom Carriage and their promise to the industry, and I really believe those two could pull it off as well.
Yeah, absolutely right.
They have the heart for the people and the industry in each their way. Yeah, so that's great news. Thank you for coming on the show. I'm sending you energy and power for the projects ahead, and there's so much to be done, and that's the great thing about life. It's never done. You can always continue doing great things. So sending you power and energy for that, Stephen.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you for your time. Greatly appreciated.